1, 2, 3, 4. I almost didn't notice you standing in the back of the photo shoot.
This is cheesy, right? But I've lived here for 5 years and I'm not sick of seeing when you start coming into Nashville, just like the billboards and Johnny Cash and like Music City. I'm like, this is my place. This is our place. You know what I mean? That's how it feels. It being like, this place is our place.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people in the rest of the country and the world see it as this country music mecca, which it is, I am well aware that there's so much else going on here and that it all belongs to all of us, you know, all of the people here who are are lugging the guitar case to their 4-hour gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's something about it that's really poetic, and it's like almost doesn't even matter. I've been trying to, and this isn't in like a defeatist way either. I've been trying to, in my head, just be like, I am doing the thing. This is my life. It doesn't matter that nobody knows, or that I'm not famous, or that I'm not where I thought I was going to be at this age, because I am picking up my guitar and I'm going to my 4-hour gig, and I am a working musician, and this is my life, and I am doing what I came here to do. You know what I mean? It's like, that is valid. And everybody working down in Broadway and doing all of that, we have all in some sense, you know, actualized that part for ourselves. And it's all, I'm just happy for us all, basically.
And I know I made a big mistake when I turned and ran away.
All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Two Beers with the Band. I'm your host, and today I was able to get a long-awaited interview from me anyway, and we're finally able to sit down. And today I am talking with Miss Ray Duncan, and she has brought an interesting beer that I am really, really curious about. So, Miss Ray Duncan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the beer you brought?
Well, all right. Thanks so much for having me today. Been really looking forward to it. A little bit about me. I'm a singer-songwriter from the Central Coast of California, but I've been living in Nashville for about 5 years, you know, just doing the thing here. And today I brought this honey blonde ale. It's called Miromel. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's from East Nashville Beer Works. And so it's actually a blonde ale, and it's brewed with local Tennessee honey. And I picked it up from, I actually work at this little part-time at a convenience store on the corner of Lishi and Douglas called Brassfield Provisions. It's an awesome family-run store, and I just picked this up there because I was working today, and it was convenient, and it looked like a good beer. So,
all right. Well,
yeah.
Let's
cracking it open.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump in, because I'm very curious about this beer. I have not seen this or heard of it, but of course I do know East Nashville Beer Works. They're right down the street. Mm-hmm. All right.
What are we thinking?
Well, first of all, this is a very, very clear beer.
Yeah.
Golden color, got a seafoam white head. Kind of loose bubbles, but I'm really, really curious about the beer.
I do like it. It does actually have like a bit of a sweetness coming through.
Yeah.
But it's not overpowering. You can still taste the kind of the quality of the actual beer with the honey.
I'm getting a very, it's kind of a faint aroma is what I'm getting, but I'm definitely getting a honey and a sweet malt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's less in your face. It's more like subtle flavors.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. I'm a fan. I would get that again for sure. It's good to know.
Wow, that's interesting. The honey is there, but it's not overly sweet, and it does have a little bit of a natural honey flavor. Mm-hmm. But the honey flavor does not overwhelm the actual base beer.
Totally.
So I'm getting quality characters from the beer as well as the honey, and the beer is kind of medium bodied. It's very smooth, and it's not real sweet, but it's interesting. The finish is very, very short.
And it's not too light. Like it is very blonde. Like it's not watery, like light.
Yeah.
It's still got a really nice medium body, like you said.
Yeah. So I enjoy that beer. And
Cool.
I'm definitely going to enjoy drinking this while I talk to you. So, so what are you doing right now with music?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm sort of in like a tiny bit of a break. No, I shouldn't say break. But I'm in a little bit of a quieter spot. I recorded an EP last fall that I'm trying to release, and it takes a long time to give things the proper release because a lot of those costs are really prohibitive, unfortunately, for like PR or just music video or just anything that goes along with it. So what I tried to do is I did a crowdfunding campaign in June, and that was really an awesome experience. It was very educational. It was not my first crowdfunding campaign, but it was the first time I hired a consultant and actually really kind of made it full-time job almost. So yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, I didn't make my goal, which didn't surprise me because, again, it wasn't my first campaign like this. So I knew that my network might be a little saturated. I knew that going into it. But I did end up, obviously, with more money than I had to start, which is a good thing. So what I'm going to use that for is I'm going to put that towards promotional stuff that I'm going to need to release this EP spring of 2025. So really that's kind of what's been on my mind, is just getting this music out and knowing how to get it out and do it properly, kind of. So.
Well, I know that you're a writer, musician, a singer, composer. You're an indie artist. So for those who don't know, she's not signed with a label. She's doing all this on her own. And having all that talent, do you think does that make it a little bit easier for you when you kind of set your mind on, okay, I've had this song, it's time for this song to get out there, and you have these talents so you can take care of a lot of it by yourself? Not all of it, but a lot of it. Does that help, you think?
Well, I think there's like pros and cons. I think it's interesting now. I think it's interesting now being an indie artist because like we have all the tools at our disposal to become, to gain momentum and grow our following via social media, which is totally like a blessing and a curse because at once we have the opportunity to do that, but it's also kind of a total crapshoot in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's interesting because now, from what I hear, I can only speak as an unsigned artist. I've never been signed, so that's my only experience. But it's funny because record labels, I'm told, are really looking for a strong social media presence, like thousands of followers, just a lot going on and a lot of engagement. And they want you to be creating buzz for yourself. And a lot of other indie artists have raised the question, if I'm already doing that for myself, why do I need the record company? Do you know what I mean? Like, It's kind of it. And I don't know the answer to that. I know that like it'd be beneficial to have the machine behind me, like of a record company, but that comes with all of the caveats of being tied to an entity like that, which in a way are becoming a little more obsolete with the sort of DIY approach that's kind of like come through social media, if that makes sense. So I don't know, like, I like that I get to decide, I like that I get to decide what I'm going to put out, but then also it requires me to have that kind of long-term sort of more long-term planning executive function, which does not come as naturally to me as the songwriting part, which I think is a common experience,
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, a lot of people say that. A lot of creatives say, I can do the songwriting, play the instruments, some people can do the production, the engineering, the whole thing, but when it comes to the actual business side of it, that's where they hit the wall. And you know, I know that, well, I don't know, I've heard that is the hardest part for a creative, is trying to do the business end of it. And that's where, of course, the label would come in and say, okay, you make the music, we'll get it out there. But at the same time, there's stipulations. Like you say, you know, okay, we want these songs, we don't want that one. And we're going to take this song, we're going to make a few adjustments to it. You know, and for me, being a consumer, I do like listening to your music the way it is, because I can hear everything you're saying in the music, because there's no one there trying to, you know, kind of edit you out of your music to make it palatable, as some would say. You know, and that, I understand that genres want certain things, and labels want certain things in their songs, and you know, crowdfunding seems to be an interesting way to raise money. I know a couple of other bands that have actually done very well with crowdfunding, but they have huge followings, you know, and I guess I kind of say that to say, you
need a crowd.
Like
you need an actual crowd for it to work.
Well, you know, I mean, of course you do, but at the same time, you know, who are your fans? You know, do you know who your fans are? Do you know what kind of people listen to your music? I mean, do you have, other than, you know, when you're performing, do you have interaction with maybe some fans that might, you know, follow you on your social medias and try to, you know, direct message you, and it's like, oh, hey, I saw you at such and such this Friday, and man, it was an awesome show. And, you know, people you know, I guess, like
engaged fans, like fans that are interacting. I mean, I have a whole following of people in California, where I'm from, because I was doing music there for all my teens. I started playing music out when I was like 13 years old, and my dad, Charles Duncan, and I have a band actually, called Ranchers for Peace. And that sort of got me experienced in like touring and playing music when I was really young, before I had enough of my own music to like go out and play shows alone. So, point being, you know, I'd been playing out in California for a long time. And so I had like my whole community there, and I still in touch with them. Like, I'm going back to California next month to play some shows. And so I'd say that's like a really active demographic of my fans, and that kind of is like the cross section of that would include a lot of, you know, sort of what you call like boomer generation, or like sort of the older folks, and then my like younger peers. It's sort of all over the place, and I'm like totally okay with that, because there's different benefits to each like age group following you, you know, like and then I have all the people in Nashville who are like mostly younger, I think, just because a lot of those people are other musicians who I've met and networked with here. But yeah, I mean, honestly, there's not a ton of people, man. There's not, like, you know, I'm not very well known, you know.
Well, I think in Nashville, it's probably difficult to, I mean, even if you have a decent fan base, and what would a decent fan base be considered?
Right, I don't even know.
You know, 100 people, 200 people, 5,000 people, you know, what, and I'm sure Nashville's probably a little more than you expected when you moved here.
Oh, I think I knew what I was getting into. Because I was really aware that I was leaving California and the particular area of the Central Coast where I lived, where there were these really cushy winery gigs that I could play, and I had to bring the PA myself and I had to run everything myself, but I would be paid really decently out there. I don't know how it is out there these days, but they were paying really well. And I knew that I was leaving that to come to a place that was really saturated and where I wouldn't have those same paying gigs, at least for quite some time. So, but what I knew was that if, for me personally, I wasn't being fulfilled in my career staying where I was staying. I wanted to come somewhere where I was going to be seen potentially, if not by, whatever industry people, just by other artists and peers. Because it's a lonely feeling, to be just like by yourself. I don't know. Not by myself. There were a lot of other artists out where I was living. It's just like I kind of had a specific thing in mind that I wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I came here. Also, my mom's a songwriter. I think I mentioned when we were talking earlier. And she had already been living out here. And so I'd visited and I'd taken a good look at it and made the choice to come here. And I don't regret it. I still think it's where I'm supposed to be right now,
Yeah.
But yeah, it is very competitive for sure.
I can only imagine, it just, for people that don't know, anywhere you go in this city, there is a musician or someone in the room that is tied into music some way, somehow. And I'm sure as an artist that can be an overwhelming thought. But at the same time, it could be, you know what, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to go do what I'm going to do today, put my best foot forward, and maybe somebody will, recognize me, or I'll get into a conversation, or I'll bump into somebody. And
yeah,
I mean, I bump into people all the time who, are musicians, who are people in, the business side of labels and stuff like that. And, it's crazy in this city. Like you say, it is so saturated, but, I think as a consumer, I think artists who come here and don't know what they want, they may think, like people here would move to California and say, I'm going to be an actor or an actress. The songs in the movies, they all talk about it. And how many people actually make it?
Right.
And how many people after a certain amount of time give up and come back home? I think people that move to Nashville that just think they're, like the song says, I played a bar and then the right person saw me and now I got signed. That
right.
If you don't have a goal in mind and a step-by-step process to get to your goal, I think as an artist in Nashville, it's probably going to be a long, hard road.
Yeah. I mean, you need to definitely have alternatives to the whole, my ship is going to come in and everything's going to be all okay. I mean, because I've heard plenty of horror stories from peers who have done the whole thing, have been signed, and then different things happened and that was taken away or that fell through. I've known people who've gotten really successful or really close to that, sort of having made it, whatever that means now.
Yeah.
And it's still not guaranteed, and you're still, you still can't take it for granted, kind of. And so, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I feel like being here, and it sounds a little cutthroat, I don't mean it that way. I think being here, you either get better or you leave. I think,
Well, a lot of people have said that. And, I've talked to a lot of people off mic. I've talked to, before and after interviews, and I've heard that from so many people.
It's just impossible not to when you're, surrounded by people with really awesome talent. And I kind of made a choice really early on, instead of making me feel depressed or making me feel like I have no business doing this. It reaffirms that I do have business doing this. This is actually who I am, and this is the life that I didn't even choose. It's just the life that I have to live. And so I'm going to do it. I'm going to let these other people, inspire me. And in the indie community, we can uplift each other and put each other on shows and like be really like co-write and do all that stuff, because like people aren't going to take care of us. We have to take care of each other, So
Right. Well, do you feel that Nashville has the community to take care of you? And
yeah.
I mean, do you feel that the indie community in Nashville is a lot tighter than people on the outside might think? People that aren't in the community, people out of state, or, people who have made it big and signed a label and just they only come to Nashville to record and hang out and then leave. Do you feel that the community is there to support you and that there's enough of a community that you could support each other?
I do feel that way. I think it's a lot, a part of the culture here definitely is like being, if you're not good to work with, people might talk about that, you know what I mean? And not in like a gossiping way, but just it really pays to be nice, to be around and to be professional and to be kind to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I think the community is very much alive in many genres, and that if anything, I could just be holding myself more accountable to utilizing it more, because I get very introverted and I get very like set in my ways, my kind of neurotic, tendencies. But what I actually need to do is just go to more shows, be present for everybody,
Well, do you feel that going to shows, being in the community and seeing other performers go out there and do what they do, do you feel that pushes you to get better? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but do you feel like, man, if I want to play with this band, or if I want to, do this or do that, or if I want to open with them, I'm going to have to step it up. Do you feel like being here makes you push a little bit harder than if you were somewhere else? And it's kind of like you said in California, we had these paid gigs and
there's a lot of, I will say there were a lot of really talented, awesome people where I was at. I just think like I think it's important. Maybe it was just not even the scene so much as needing to leave where I grew up, you know, and just needing to be somewhere a little bit bigger. I didn't want to go to LA. I like LA. That's an unpopular opinion, I feel like, but I actually like LA. I've spent a lot of time there. My parents met there and stuff, but I wasn't really familiar with the music scene in LA, and I didn't know anybody there, and so it just didn't feel, because a lot of people ask me why I didn't just go to LA, and I'm like, I had more connections in Nashville from visiting my mom and stuff than I ever had in LA. So, and I liked coming here. I liked the South. Obviously, when I first moved here, I was still very much a cigarette smoker, which I'm no longer, but and that was before COVID and before a lot of the bars had stopped doing the whole smoke inside thing. And that really felt like total smoker Disneyland for me when I'd come here and like be able to smoke indoors. I felt really decadent. Yeah. And so now I don't care about that anymore. But I remember coming here and it felt so like romantic and exciting, and just like the leaves turning in the fall, turning colors, it's just great. So I fell in love with Nashville,
Well, I'm born and raised Nashvilleian, so for me,
awesome.
So for me, I love Nashville too. I've been to California a handful of times, and to be honest with you, about 5 days is my max, and then I just got to go. It's just too much.
Where did you go, if you don't mind me asking?
Let's see, L.A., Malibu, Bakersfield.
Well, yeah.
Kind of just down, I don't know, down in that area, Hollywood, stuff like that. And this is just me.
Yeah.
Okay. California is just way too fast. It's just
That's so
people.
interesting.
People are. I'm not going to say rude, but they're not Nashville. They're. It's kind of like, hey,
Right.
hey. And I'm kind of like, why don't can we talk? Or, I mean, it's like, I know that this is, maybe it's not odd, but it was odd for me. I went to a restaurant with my buddy. He, born and raised California. I was visiting him. He came to Nashville to go to college, ended up staying here, telling his parents he was done with Cali, whatever. I went and visited, in the summertime, and we were at a restaurant. We got seated. He had to use the restroom. He got up and left. The waitress came over there. She had zero personality. It's like, what do you want? It's like, good morning. And she just looked at me like, what? That's not on the menu.
Yeah.
And it's just that's my take on California. But I'm
that just sounds like bad service.
and I'm just saying for me,
Totally.
I'm a little biased. I really love Nashville. I don't plan on ever leaving. I'm work for the city, and
That's awesome.
every time I leave, no matter where I go, period, I can't wait to get back home because this is home for me.
Oh.
And artists that I've talked to and other people I've talked to that move here say the same thing. They're like, you know what? Now Nashville is home for me. And it just makes me feel a little warm inside when people say that, because, I say it's my little town. It's no longer little, but
It still feels little. I mean, as far as like a city, it was because I moved from a really small city, and it was the perfect stepping stone for me, or whatever landing place for me, because it still feels like a city and it still has like that cute little skyline, but it's not as daunting as, say, like, moving to New York City or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just got a really nice, like in East Nashville is like a tiny town. I've been living in East Nashville, and I see just like, I'm just tripping over people I know. And that feels comfortable and familiar to me, to have that. So I love it. But
well, do you think the East Nashville community is, and for those that don't know, East Nashville is the center, to a degree, of indie music?
yeah.
And maybe the indie vibe,
Yeah.
if I could even say that, because that.
No, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And well, what do you like about the indie vibe, the indie community?
I mean, I think it's like, the DIY stuff, like the house shows, the sort of genre bending, like someone's like, oh, we're going to do a fine art show in the house, and also some people are going to play too, just, I like that kind of energy, because that feels very California to me. That's kind of like how I grew up, was with sort of like a mixed bag of just different artsy people.
Yeah.
And that is kind of like how I feel in East Nashville. And it's always funny because I feel like there's almost like tension between people who live in like other parts of Nashville and people who live in East, because it's like the sort of hipster, like whatever you want to call it, epicenter. I just think it's funny. I lived in Hillsborough Village for like several years, and I really enjoyed that as well. Like there's a lot of good stuff going on there too. So just, yeah.
Well, speaking of genres, and I ask everybody this, and some people give me a straight answer, some people don't, but either way, what genre of music do you play? Or what genre of music would you put yourself in? Yeah. If you had to pick one?
I mean, I always just use the really forgiving umbrella of like indie rock, because I think it encapsulates like everything I'm doing from this point forward. And that'll be a bit easier for me to say and embody once I release this new project, because that's very much more in that vein. And everything I'm currently writing and planning on releasing in the pipeline is all more in that direction.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say within that, it kind of delves into some Americana aspects. It delves into some soul aspects, those influences that it's pulling from. A lot of the stuff I have out on Spotify is kind of all over the place because I've been writing songs for a long time and I already have like a pretty decent body of work, I feel like. And a lot of it is more folk. I think that's where a lot of us start, is with an acoustic guitar and kind of feeling it out. I always wanted to write, more rock music, but I didn't have the means. I didn't have the ability. I was really intimidated by all of just the gear, not just the technical ability, but like the pedal boards, the amps. I didn't understand any of it. I kind of still don't, but I would say like I started as kind of a folk artist and then I moved up into sort of, not up, I'm not saying it's like better or worse, but I moved into this sort of rock world, I guess. That's what I'd say.
So tell me a little bit about the upcoming project, or at least what you can.
Yeah, of course.
What you got going?
Well, I recorded this EP in 2 days, and it's a 5-song EP, and I recorded it at Starbird Sound with the engineer Mike Fahey. He's a brilliant engineer. It was incredibly amazing to work with. Recommend him to anybody. And I think he's working with like a lot of people right now, and as he should be. Fantastic studio out, I think in like Antioch. And it was just a wonderful experience because it was kind of my first time being in charge of like an actual session that wasn't just me by myself, but was me with my band. And it was so empowering to do that. So anyway, that was a great experience. And everybody on the record is incredible. Everybody whose hands are in it is incredible. And the project is called Laundromat. There's a song on it called Laundromat, and that's kind of my whole thing right now, is this laundromat thing. I don't even know how this song came to me like in a dream. I know that sounds so pretentious and ridiculous, but it really did.
Well, not really.
You know what I mean? I know that's such a sort of cliche thing, because half the time things will come to me in a dream, and then I wake up and I do like a half awake voice note on my phone, and then I go listen to it later and it's absolute trash, so normally that doesn't work, but this time I was getting up really early for like an early shift waitressing or coffee shop or something, and I woke up and I had this whole verse just like coming out, just this whole weird verse that was so from someplace else, and that's how I wrote that song. And so it ended up being the title track to this project, and the whole project is kind of a loose theme. It's like exploring themes of just this mundane stuff, like going to the laundromat and stuff. You know what I mean?
I mean, chores, things you have to do.
Right.
It can.
It's relatable. It's a timeless human experience.
Right. Well, I mean, we're all living the human experience.
That's
and
right.
We all have to experience it.
We all have to experience washing our clothes.
Right. Well, I mean, that's something that 99% of us have to do. There's the 1% that, they got people for that.
They got people for that.
Yeah.
They'll just throw those clothes out and get new ones.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. One day I'm going to have people. I don't know what they're going to do
for you.
I'm going to have people. I'm going to call them and say, hey, you go do whatever it is I pay you to do. That's well, as a creative, I'm sure, and I've heard this from so many people, that songs just pop up at the weirdest moment in the weirdest way. And, I am not a creative, so I couldn't, if something popped into my head, be like, "Ooh, let me grab a guitar and see if I can do this," or let me write down what I'm thinking right now, or And I've referred to this several times. The old oh, we were in a diner and I was sitting across from so and so, and he wrote all this on a napkin.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you could have seen what he or she wrote down, it was just amazing. And it turned into a song that's been around for 40 years.
Sure.
You know, and that there are people that put these songs out. It's like, man, that was just a filler. We needed 10 tracks to make the disc, and
Right.
we had 9 killers, and we just put this on there for fun as filler. And now all of a sudden it's up to number 3. And it's like, what do people even like about this song?
Yeah.
Know? And it's the consumer found something in that song that appealed to them. So you singing songs about daily life, I mean, the life that we all live, you know, I could see how that would be appealing.
Well, right. I mean, the song, it's kind of like, I joke that it's the least autobiographical song I've written. It's not about, the only parts of it that are true to my lived experience are the laundromat itself and the sort of descriptions therein. Because it's kind of like a little rom-com. It has a whole sort of beginning, middle, end kind of about just like, I don't know, just some young people. It's just bizarre. But that's the title track. And then there are 4 other songs, and I'm really excited about the production on it and just like the instruments, like the instrumentation and the people I had playing on it. There's like some horns there. I think there's some flute. I think there's a lot going on. So it's going to be really sick. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm really interested in hearing that, because I can see just, you look slightly stressed out, but at the same time, it's like, I'm ready for this to be released into the wild, and it's going to be crazy. And I enjoy that. Again, I've never experienced releasing an album, but I can tell from people I've talked to and the album release parties I've been to that it is a major highlight.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me into my next question. So you're continuing to move forward. What's the top of the mountain for you? What has to happen for you to say, you know what, I've made it? Or not I've made it, but this is the top of the mountain for me. This is my ultimate goal. What's your ultimate goal?
I don't know. I mean, for a long time, it's been just being able to do music for a living, and ideally as an artist, being able to be an artist for a living would be really tight. Having, whether that was with the support of a label or not, I know I have a lot of musicians who I know personally, who I really look up to, who have made careers for themselves, who may not be like a household name, but they can do a house show tour of like the entire US and like, and make money and live their life. You know what I mean? It's sort of, I guess that's more of an attainable goal. I mean, the whole idea of fame is actually really terrifying. And I don't know. When I was young, I think I wanted that, like a lot of us do. All I want is to be able to eat, and to be able for people to hear my work and for it to mean something to them and for it to reach the people that it needs to reach. So just like maybe having the respect of my peers, maybe just being able to play all the time and really being able to just make amazing records. Like that's kind of all I want to do. I think I spend my whole life wanting to be back there, in the studio, because I love performing. Performing is awesome, but for me, the pinnacle experience of my artistry happens when I'm recording, because I'm realizing the vision of the song and of, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that is the height of my experience as an artist, is experienced there in the studio. And a lot of people are like, oh, I hate the studio. It takes forever. It's so like tedious, this and that. Like, dude, I grew up in studios. I adore the studio. Just put me there. I don't want to be an engineer. I want to let the professionals do all that, but getting to be there is amazing.
Well, that's cool. Do you think that being in the studio, which you say a lot of people don't like, but do you feel like when you're in the studio singing, when you're working in the studio, do you feel like the music is healing for you? Is that kind of because when you're in the studio, it's like what we do in here is being recorded. This is not something that when everybody walks out the door, they're going to either forget or remember or, everything in the studio. I got to step it up a little bit in the studio,
right?
Compared to, playing a house show, playing for friends, playing a small club around town. Studio, that's a different different game. Do you feel like when you're in there and I'm not going to say creating, but in essence you are creating, do you feel like maybe that is healing for you?
Well, yeah, I think it's healing in the sense that like doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing with my time is healing because it's in alignment. It's like I feel whole when I'm doing what I feel like I'm meant to do in this life, And so that is very healing because it's the actualization of my entire like spirit, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And so like, and it's those like spontaneous moments that, cause you've already made the song, you already have an arrangement, but there's always like going to be the spontaneity of when you get real live human beings in the room together who are going to have, the players are all artists, the drummers and artists, the bass players and artists.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is to let them be themselves. Like hopefully you've gotten people in your band who you can trust to do that and you don't need to hold their hand, like give them some direction, but let them be themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, if you want to be a leader, you need to lead, but like you also need to have people in your band who you trust and whose artistry you can count on, so like they're doing their thing and you're not stepping on that. And then people are going to have ideas that you didn't foresee. And then it's going to put something on the recording that's going to be there forever. And it's like really incredible. Like it's an incredible relic of this time we spent together, like, it's like, this needs a tambourine on that, just that kind of stuff, like, I don't know. It's just great.
It seems like, you put a group of creatives in a room and you say, okay, this is the playlist, or this is your music sheet, and people are going to interpret that differently. And, that's where, again, the creative aspect comes in, where you might think the guitar sound should be like this.
Right.
Well, they think it should be like this, and they're playing the guitar and you're not.
Yeah.
And for me, I've sat in several studios. I've, been through that process. I know people who do everything.
Yeah.
So, and I love to tag along. And I'm a sponge. I love watching all of it. It's
so
never...
cool.
There's not a boring day in the studio for me because it's not usual for me. So, people just like, oh, I got to go record today, blah, blah, blah. That, everything's new for me. And I enjoy all of it. The recording part, okay, we're going to have to go play the small venue, or we need to go to the garage and practice, or we needed, man, you missed that, we need to scrap today, we need to work on this, get together, and just that to me is interesting. But for you, that's probably work because you're the one that's having to put all that together, where I'm just listening to the finished product.
I think it's interesting for me because like I'm I'm the writer, you know, like I'm an artist. And so it's like, it's the me show, you know, like it's all like, even if it's my band rehearsing, it's my songs. And it's like, I'm actualizing my vision for the song. And so I'm constantly being engaged by that. Whereas it might not be as interesting to somebody who may really care about the band, but they just don't have that same artistic and like, I don't know, just total investment,
Right.
emotionally. Right. And you really can't ask that of people either, I don't think. So yeah, no, it's kind of funny. It's kind of interesting, but, and I will say people who've worked with me, I'm definitely like, I like to trust people. I like to give lenience, but I think I'm a little bit of a hard ass. You know, it's like, I know when I don't like what's happening, and I
Right.
know when I do like what's happening and when that needs to change. And like the clarity of vision is really important, you know, like just knowing what you want for a song so that we don't just get paralyzed by indecision, because my brain cannot handle that. You know, I'm like, we got to make a choice, you know?
Well, I mean, if you're the writer
Yeah.
and this is your baby and you're bringing it in and saying, this is what I want. You know, you're the quarterback for the football team.
Right.
Everything's on you. Everybody's watching you. You're calling the play. It's got to go your way. If it doesn't go your way, nobody wins.
Right.
You
And
know,
very well said, actually. And like I always think too, like the importance of having a good producer, like on your team, you know, having a good producer that you're working with who you can trust, is because it's your own work, you are too close to it sometimes. So you can know what you want, but you could also be putting everybody through hell trying to get what you want and wasting time and being insane. And a producer is a really good person to have who's going to be like, why are we putting keys on this? You know, just somebody who's going to ground you into your use of the time and also what is best for the song and for the project. And that's like a great producer to me, is somebody who can like know when to say that kind of thing. That's helped me before. You know what I mean? When I was like really tweaking on something and they were like, what? You know?
Yeah, you're overthinking.
It'll
that.
snap you. I mean, for me, I'll snap out of it and be like, oh my God, you're right. What are we doing? Stop, you know?
Yeah.
So it's cool.
All right. Well, on that note, if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and jump into this other beer that's
Perfect. I was excited about this one. I'll let you talk about
and
it. But
you know what? I am super pumped about this beer. This beer is from Barrique Brewing and Blending here in Nashville, Tennessee. And these guys do great work. It's a barrel-aged wild ale that has peach. And I've seen this beer sitting on the shelf, ice cold, and this one's sweating. So I'm really excited about it. But let's go ahead and get this one in the glass.
so I'm not familiar with the term wild ale. Oh, we got a live one.
But, yeah, and
Like, I don't know what the difference is or what makes it so wild. You know what I mean?
yeah, and wild ale. Boy, there's not much head on that at all.
I find that with the fruited sours sometimes.
Yeah,
I've had that experience as well.
and that's actually not not unusual, but you got a little bit. You actually poured yours better than I poured mine.
Well, I feel like you kind of poured it the way you're supposed to, but see, look, it disappeared.
Yeah,
Now it's gone. Sorry, I got some stuff on your blanket.
No, it's all right. I leaned into this one a little too hard. I wasn't paying attention because I'm actually so excited to jump into this beer. This beer is, I'm going to say light gold, possibly a kind of a wet straw color. It is definitely hazy.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of this other one we tried.
Oh, yeah. No head at all on this beer.
I'm going to say right off that I'm a huge fan. I don't always like sours. They can be a little too abrasive.
Yeah.
This is the perfect balance of like sour, and then the peach really comes through, but it's not too sweet either.
What you say the peach came through on
The
it.
peach is really coming through, but it's not like saccharine sweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think maybe that it's more of the natural peach sweetness that is kind of...
Yeah.
I haven't tasted it yet, so I'm trying to see what you think before I jump in. And
The thing that scares, maybe this is like not necessary to say, but the thing that always scares me with sours is they always give me like really reckless heartburn. I can tell that will not do that. It's just, it's got that acidity, but it's not abrasive.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, these guys, they do good work down
that's
there.
delicious. I really like that.
They invest a lot of time, a lot of effort into the beers they make. I enjoy going down there and talking to them, looking at what's available, looking at all the barrels everywhere in there. And it's
Cool.
just, I look at those barrels, I'm like, man, if I could just tap that barrel. I don't even know what's in it, but I know it's going to be good. And, it's
Cool.
fun talking to them, and sometimes they're like, Chris, I got other customers. I got to take care of that. But I'm really curious about this beer.
No, it's a really good choice. Really enjoying it.
Oh, wow. It is sour, but it's a light sour. It's almost like a candy sour. And the peach, it really does kind of lighten that sour flavor, but I'm also getting a little bit of a cereal in the back.
Yeah.
Right in behind.
Yeah.
Right in behind the peach. When the peach kind of starts fading, I'm getting a little bit of a cereal malt.
I will definitely be actually looking for this next time I need to bring beer somewhere.
Yeah,
I will buy this. It's really good.
This is delightful. It really is. Man, I'm enjoying this beer. And let me see. This beer is, I believe I'm seeing 5.9 ABV.
Chill, right on.
And this is, man, I could see myself drinking a few more of these.
Yeah,
and
100%.
that's really cool because I have a few more of them at the house. So once all this is said and done, I'm
Good
probably
deal.
going to go home and indulge.
This is what I'd bring to like, I don't know, like the little outdoor rooftop charcuterie soiree. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this would go so well with that kind of like late summer vibe. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah. And right now,
Really good.
there is all kinds of late summer vibe going on in this city everywhere. Rooftop parties, rooftop concerts, rooftop. I mean, there's so many rooftops in this city. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I hate asking this question because everybody's thought about it, but a lot of people don't really want to talk about it. But it's, I've been asked the same question, so I feel it's valid. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, and what are you doing right now to get yourself where you want to be?
Well, the path feels really non-linear. A lot of people I know who've been successful in the arts, in music and otherwise, have said it's just this series of persistent, really small steps that you take and connections that you make with people that end up meaning something down the line. And so right now I'm trying to invest more in my career in the way, not just materially, but like in my time, not just practicing my actual instrument and trying to be a good musician, but You know, like I said, being more involved in my community and like trying to actually put my face out there and just be present for people and be a friend to people, because that all matters, you know. And I hope that down the line that starts to kind of accumulate, because I don't have a cheat code, you know, into this whole thing. I don't know how to make it give me what I want. All I know is how to get better at what I do and work on what's within my control. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like, what I would love in 5 years, what I would love is to be doing music full time and be hopefully touring. I would love a chance to get sick of the road. You know, everybody's like, oh, I'm so sick of the road. I'm like, yeah, I bet you are. Like, I would really love to have that problem, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, I really want to be touring, and I want to be, I want people to hear my work, and, you know, like, yeah, I don't know. It's I know that's kind of vague, but
No, not really. A lot of people I've talked to say the same thing. They're looking for the next step above where they're at right now.
That's really because you're just kind of doggy paddling. You're just like, what's the next right thing? What is the next stair step for me in my career and artistically, you know?
And do you feel like maybe that when you were younger and you said, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is where I want to be, and I'm going to be playing these venues and this and that, and all starry-eyed, and then you grow up a little bit and you see the dark side of music and of the industry. I'm not going to say the dark side, but it's the side that's like, I never pictured this. And, you know, as a child, you don't think about these things, but as an adult, you're seeing the industry through, I'm not going to say, you're seeing the industry clear, and you're seeing things are not as rosy and as easy as you thought they would be.
Well, I will say that my experience of that was a little different because I grew up in a musical household, and I grew up with 2 songwriter parents, and my mom was providing basically for our family with her songwriting. She had a pub deal for my childhood, and we lived, you know, comfortably for many years, and she took care of that, you know. And so it was kind of a different experience because I saw her writing when she didn't feel like writing. You know, she knew she had to turn in a certain number of songs a year. Right. And she'd gotten some really notable cuts, and she's gained like respect of her heroes and notoriety and everything that somebody might want, you know. But it was interesting watching that experience for her because she literally worked it like a job, you know. And my dad is a songwriter himself and very good, and has had a couple of things happen for him as well. But at the time, she kind of needed the house, and so she'd be like, you know, take the kids to the park, like I need to write, you know. And she would make herself do it, and she had that work ethic, you know. Right. Which was really an amazing example, not just as a woman, but as an artist and all of that. And so as soon as I got old enough to where I was really showing interest in music as a path and as a lifestyle, my parents really supported that. And not everyone is so lucky, you know. Not everybody has parents who want them to go into the arts, you know. And so that was one thing that was really cool. And they also, not only did they get me my first keyboard or my first audio interface, you know, supporting those impulses, but as soon as I got old enough to sort of be meeting with these people in the industry, you know, be in these rooms, being spoken to in some type of way, my parents were always kind of in my ears, either side, saying, you know, don't sign anything, don't do anything. You need to read the fine print. You need to look out for yourself. Just all of that. Yeah. You know, they were just like, you need to really watch yourself because people are going to try to hose you, especially as a woman, but just in general. They're going to think that you're not going to read the fine print. You know what I mean? So I was lucky enough to at least not be jaded by that perspective, but to just have it in the back of my mind that in situations I was in that I needed to take control, and like show people that I know what's up, and look out for my own interests kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you're not just somebody who writes and sings and walks in. It's like, just give me a piece of paper, I'll sign it, and then give me money and put me in a studio and let's make it happen. It's not that easy.
Sure.
And it is not, well, okay, I take that back. For some people, it's that easy, but for 99% of the people who are creating music, it's not that easy.
Right.
You can't just walk in and everything's rosy, sign a piece of paper, and it's like, cool, I'm going to go in and the money's going to be flowing.
There is no free lunch.
No. No. And, I think a lot of people who are thinking about music and thinking about coming to Nashville or thinking about getting into the industry, they need to hear these things, and they need to, and that's what I want to present to your fans, the audience. I want to present what it's really like. It's not, music is not a Hallmark movie, and music industry in Nashville is definitely not a Hallmark movie. It's not scripted, it's not easy, and it's not all, Christmas lights and I don't know.
Well, and it's not all bad either, right? It's really interesting. It's really interesting because I love coming to Nashville. I used to go, when I drive back in from leaving town, this is cheesy, right? But I've lived here for 5 years, and I'm not sick of seeing when you start coming into Nashville, just like the billboards and Johnny Cash and like Music City. I'm like, this is my place. This is our place. You know what I mean? That's how it feels. I mean, like, this place is our place.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people in the rest of the country and the world see it as this country music mecca, which it is, I am well aware that there's so much else going on here, and that it all belongs to all of us, all of the people here who are are lugging the guitar case to their 4-hour gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's something about it that's really poetic, and it's like almost doesn't even matter. I've been trying to, and this isn't in like a defeatist way either. I've been trying to, in my head, just be like, I am doing the thing. This is my life. It doesn't matter that nobody knows, or that I'm not famous, or that I'm not where I thought I was going to be at this age, because I am picking up my guitar and I'm going to my 4-hour gig, and I am a working musician, and this is my life, and I am doing what I came here to do. You know what I mean? It's like, that is valid. And everybody working down in Broadway and doing all of that, we have all in some sense, actualized that part for ourselves. And it's all, I'm just happy for us all, basically. Is what, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it gives you a different perspective on the industry as well as the community.
Right.
It's not, if you want to make it, and I'm not even saying, I guess, make it, that is,
well, have a song like go viral on TikTok and suddenly you're playing stadiums. Like, sure, that would be tight,
out of the millions of people who are out there in their garage, in their apartment, in some back room at a restaurant, on their break playing a guitar, or just trying to write, that it doesn't work like that. I mean, you've got to have the support of the community. You've got to have the drive and
the total neurotic gnawing ambition.
Well, I mean, honestly, that, you have to have that in anything, I think.
And it's a little self-centered. It's totally a little bit self-centered, even though a lot of, like, I'm not saying that like we're bad people, but it just, to feel like we have any business doing this, it might be a little bit self-centered, but it's just, I just feel like I'm an artist. We're all creating. We're all artists, whether or not the world validates that for us in our lifetime. Whether or not the world goes and is like, yes, you are this. You have this many social media followers now. You have this much, notoriety and success and blah blah blah. Because it's like I know who I am. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
or do you feel that you're an introvert or an extrovert? Or let me break it down just a little bit. Are you an introvert off stage, but an extrovert when you're, all right, here we go, curtains moving, lights are coming up, let's go? Are you a combination of the two, or where are you at with that?
definitely a combination of the two. I do really like performing, and something definitely like kicks on when I'm performing, where it's like the DNA of my entire family to just be like, it's showbiz, baby.
Right.
There's something kicks on, and I still might have a night where I'm like not as talkative. Like I want to banter in between songs, but I really just want to do the songs. And then I might have a time where my banter is like really fire and it's all really spontaneous and I'm feeling really like feeling myself and people are feeling it. It's just sort of like depends on the night. I do sort of have a loose rule, which is that I try not to drink before I play, because not just like to not be drunk, but actually it kind of wrecks my voice. Like I will say, like, even just like a sip of beer, like 3 sips of beer will change my voice and make me not as good. And it's not about being lit as much as it's about something in the beer. It just makes it like messes everything up. Yeah. I know that's not what part of your question. I just think it's sort of interesting how we all have different coping mechanisms. So like some artists feel more comfortable when they've had a little bit of something before they go on to like loosen up.
Yeah.
I don't find that to help me at all,
Well, I've talked to several people who it's almost like pulling teeth to get them to have just a simple conversation.
Right.
But you see them step out on that stage and they are the absolute life of the party. And
right.
Who is this person?
It's compartmentalizing.
And then as soon as they get off stage, they're right back in, it took me a while to understand that, and that it's not a generalization, it's just an observation.
Sure.
That a lot of creatives are introverts to a degree, and when they're not performing, they just want to kind of be there.
Well, right, because being creative is like you're alone in the work. Ideas don't come to me, or they don't feel safe coming to me when I'm surrounded by people. I'm not gonna be able to really sit down and write a song. I might be able to jot down some ideas, but when you want to have ideas, you need to create a space where they can land. You need to like build, I've said this before, like you need to build a little nest so that they will, because they're always fluttering like above somewhere, above your head and your subconscious, but they will not land unless you create somewhere that feels safe for them to exist, Yeah. And so I think that does kind of bring a little bit of an introvert side to it, because like you have to take that time for yourself, and like be alone and be comfortable and not feel like there's people kind of listening all over you,
Yeah, like when you're an introvert or when you're at a big gathering, you're kind of guarded because you're protecting yourself. Where when you're on stage and you look out,
yeah,
and all you see is shadows because of the lights, and you feel somewhat unprotected because you don't know what's out there, but it's like, I'm being paid to do this, and this is my art, and I have to get it out there, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but it's almost like to protect yourself, you've got to be, I'm not going to say be someone else, but you got to put up a different shield.
Well, and it is you. I think it is you. It's just like a facet of you. It's like a different side of you that has this other function. Yeah. And it's still true. Like for me, it's not like a mask. It's just this other side. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting performing because for the time that you spend up there performing, you're in control. Like mostly there's this illusion of control because you're the one with the microphone and you're the one that's kind of holding everybody suspended in this moment. Yeah. Obviously a person could come in and totally disrupt that. Like the moment is actually very fragile and very permeable because somebody could just come in and be like, crazy. But there is a power dynamic in the fact that you're the one performing, you're the one on stage, everybody here is like watching you. And it's really interesting because you can get desensitized to that. Like whenever, like a writer's round is a perfect example because it's really like this performance of listening because we're all sitting on the stage together. Usually it's 4 artists, right? And like we're still on the stage while everybody else is performing their song and everybody's just perceiving you. Like you're just completely on display and you're having to like listen and nod your head and tap your foot and it's so jarring when you're first up there, like you don't know what to do with your arms, Yeah. But then kind of you can settle into the moment and it gets less weird. It's like I call that like almost it's like stage, it's desensitization to being on stage because I'll forget that there's just people like perceiving me, that I'm just completely on display and I'm just sitting there. And how I'll always have this out of body moment when I perform that's just like we did this to ourselves. Like we put ourselves here for some reason because we want to do this. And it's always it just makes me laugh,
Well, do you feel like that is a defense mechanism or do you feel like that is what it takes to be the creative, the artist, the quarterback for the football team.
Right.
And you're, this isn't practice anymore. This is the Super Bowl. I mean, everything is, and maybe that's a little too much.
No, yeah.
I mean, do you feel it's a little bit different in that aspect?
Well, I don't know. I think like it's just if you put your body into some really cold water at first, it's very jarring, but then your body adjusts to it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like you put yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable or unnatural, but pretty soon, if you just sit with your feelings, your nervous system regulates and then you become acclimated to the situation. Right. And then you can do what is required of you, you know? And I think that's kind of how performing is. And I'm making it sound like I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it very much. It's just also part of it is the little rush and I used to think I didn't get nervous, but I totally do. I think I just said that to like be cool or something. But what's really difficult is like I used to get nervous and then if I made a mistake or something, it's like my biggest advice to anybody else performing is like, then you got to watch out for the next mistake because you're going to be thinking about that mistake you just made and you're going to make another one right now because you're not being present. You're not in the moment. You haven't moved on. Yeah.
Well, I've heard in various circles and I took a guitar class in college and my instructor said, and this stuck with me, and it actually has stuck with me throughout my life in various careers. Right. But my current career, it applies on a grand level. It's like if you make a mistake, just keep rolling. Don't give that mistake any more time.
It already happened.
It already happened. You need to keep
going.
Yeah. You acknowledge that you made a mistake and just keep rolling because guess what? a majority of the people who observe that mistake won't even notice it. You know.
Well, right. And too, I mean, I had a piano teacher who was really awesome for me at the time, like just was really illuminating just musically in general, not just with piano, but I think he told me like never react to your mistakes, you know, like specifically just when you're like performing is don't make a face, don't do a thing, don't react, just keep moving through the piece or whatever, you know.
Yeah, because people
they'll see you react.
Yeah, and they'll remember that, where if you keep rolling through it, they'll be like, oh, I think she messed up there. But the following day when they're telling somebody about it, they won't bring that up because the face you made, you know, you didn't make a face. You're like, you know what? Hey, we're all human. We make mistakes. I'm going to roll through it.
And it depends too. It depends on like, if something is just insane, like sometimes you do need to stop and you need to like acknowledge it or do whatever, but there's always an exception, you know, but I think it is good to not draw a whole bunch of attention to it, you know. And like bigger shows that I've played, like I played a couple festival shows with like my dad in our band, and I was really young. I was like 18 or 19, you know, playing these shows with him, or actually younger, but and I wanted to be nervous. I could feel my body wanting to be nervous because those were like bigger audiences than I was used to. But I remember I was like, well, you're not going to mess up because this is, you know, blah, blah, blah festival. And you're not going to mess up because that's not an option for you. So don't be afraid of it because it's not going to happen. I just had to sort of like psych myself out in that way.
Yeah.
And then I did really well, you know, so whatever works for you, you know.
Well, do you think that having that mindset is something that a aspiring artist should have? I mean,
I don't know.
You know what? I know everybody approaches anxiety in different ways.
Right.
And everybody has their own way to move past it. But there are those people out there, both young and old, that's, you know, I mean, they're good at their craft. They're good at their art. But, you know, when they're playing in front of their friends, I mean, perfect.
Right.
When they're playing in front of, you know, a small group of people, but all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm going to need you to fill in. I know you know the song. I need you to bring your guitar and fill in.
Oh, right.
And it's a whole, you know, and then you can see in their face before they go out there, it's just like, you are going to have to calm down. Where are you right now? You know.
Well, I mean, and a lot of people, I think, who I look up to or whatever would say, you know, the cure for that is to just practice more. The cure for that is to just be really freaking solid on your instrument so that you can do those kind of things and be spur of the moment. And that's something that I really want to grow towards as well, you know, that I really want to hold myself accountable about, you know. Well,
do you feel practice makes perfect, as the old saying goes?
I think it gives you freedom. I think it gives you freedom because it's going to mean you're closing the gap between what you hear in your head and what you can physically do with your hands. And that's like the bane of our whole existence as instrumentalists, right? It's like I have all kinds of stuff I would love to be able to do that I just can't yet because I don't have the thousands of hours just learning the fretboard like that. You know what I mean? Like I like the way I play. I'm totally good with guitar and piano, and like I'm not dogging on myself. It's just I would have a lot more freedom if I put in that more of that time. You know what I mean? It's just you're constantly like looking at those areas where you could improve, and it's not negative. It's a good thing, you know. Well,
do you feel like you are putting in the time you can? I know you have another job, you have a life. I mean, there's other things outside of music for you, and that's for everyone else. But do you feel like you are chipping away at those hours?
I think so. I mean, like, I want to be less addicted to my phone. I want to use social media more as a tool and less of a distraction. I think that's a really common, you know, observation and struggle that a lot of people have right now in and out of music, just in general, you know.
Yeah.
It's a huge time eater, right? So I think I want to hold myself more accountable in terms of like just staying really practiced and holding myself to an actual schedule, because then I'll feel better. I'll feel more awesome, you know?
Well, you'll get better, and
Yeah.
you'll start reaching those goals.
And it's like when you run, like it's like when if I might take a little time and not be running or something, and then I start running again, and it's like, wow, this sucks, you know, when you start running again if you haven't been for a while, and it's like, wow, I literally hate this. But then like
Right.
once you get going with it, then your body remembers and it's okay, you know, and you survive. And I feel like maybe it isn't this way for everybody, but I feel like that's kind of how practice is for me. I mean, the really tedious aspects with the scales and the metronomes and the really technical side,
Yeah.
that my little ADHD brain just sort of like wants to shrivel up and crawl away, you know, but discipline, man, I hate to say it, it's good to have.
Well, I think to make it in the music industry, that is something you definitely have to have. If you want to move forward, if you want to, you know, reach your mountaintop discipline, you have to have it, because there are very few people out there just born with the gift where they can pick up a guitar and just slam out anything, or they can jump on a mic and just, you know, sing and just make it. They don't need a soundboard. It just comes out perfect. There's so few people.
Well, yeah, and we're kind of getting into that's a whole other sort of like question, debate, subject of, you know, talent versus like, what is talent? Does talent even exist? Like the idea of talent is something that is so interesting to me as a musician and as a person who gets told that I'm talented, right? It's an interesting thing because a lot of us get told that we're talented, and it's really just that we, at a certain age, at some point in our lives, probably our childhood, we became obsessed with music.
Yeah.
You know, and like for me, I think it was around age like 10, 11 where I just like became obsessed. And those are the really formative, important times where you're just like going nuts in your bedroom on your keyboard or your guitar or whatever, and just discovering your artistic identity, you know, and like encountering that for the first time.
Yeah.
I remember being like 12 years old and being like, C minor is my favorite key, you know, just it's the way that feels when you're first encountering this ability. And then you get to that end where you hit a wall and you're sick of all the stuff you're doing and you need to learn more. And then that's just the rest of your life, you know? It's learning more, getting sick of it, learning more again. And then that's your entire life.
Well, that's what makes you an artist. And
Right.
That's what makes you creative. And I mentioned earlier about taking a guitar class in college.
Right.
And when I enrolled in the class, I had starry eyes. I had high hopes of
Totally.
once the class was over, you know, it's going to be.
I'm going to learn guitar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the last day of class, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I was like, this is not me. And
Maybe you didn't have the right teacher, you know?
Well, no, I think what it was, it wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And I was younger, I had aspirations of doing other things, and I wanted to kind of see where I was at with this particular instrument. And I found at the time, maybe even now, it's like, you know what, that's just not, but at the same time, what if I would have buckled down and said, you know what, I'm going to rock this thing out. And when, you know, but
Sure.
I'm not going to say I'm not talented. I'm going to say I don't have time or devotion.
Right. Because talent, you don't know what the talent is without those other two things. The talent needs little legs to run around.
Well, I think as a creative, your devotion to your art is probably a huge motivator. And it's maybe, again, I'm probably speaking, I'm going to say out of class, but,
No.
if I think that motivation is what gets you through and it makes you hit those high points and you tell yourself, you know what, this is me.
And sometimes the best motivation is feeling like, oh my God, I suck right now. You know what I mean? Even though it's not always that negative. Sometimes I pick up the guitar and it's like really joyful and I'm just vibing and I'm just like having a great time. And sometimes I pick up the guitar and nothing I do sounds interesting to me.
Yeah.
I pick up and I go, maybe I'll have an idea right now. Maybe something will happen. And then I just go into it and I'm in my head and I'm like, oh, this all sounds really derivative and like, what the heck, and then the ideas don't feel safe and then they don't arrive. And then I'm discouraged, but that's all part of it,
Yeah. And I think, again, as a consumer and knowing people in the industry, it's interesting to hear the way creatives approach their art.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to hear the same thing from everyone. It's like, you know what, you hit that wall and you got to make that decision. Do I move forward, or is this it for me? Have I,
Yeah.
do I need to maybe go another direction?
It's never it. It's never over. It is never like the thing is, like, if that's really your life and that's really who you are, then it's never over for you. Like, I always feel like those dry places, those places of just total desolation and like no ideas, is right before a period of just total crazy, like being really prolific. I can speak from my experience only, but also I've talked to other people about this, and you might have this, it's just the dark before the dawn,
Right.
this feeling of doubt where you're just like, will I never do it again? Have I written my last song? Oh my God, and it's just, no.
And then all of a sudden it's just
Nope. You'll be fine.
explosive creation.
Right.
And then it all feels normal again. All right, well, I had a great time sitting here talking about music and talking about two pretty interesting beers that I'm definitely I'm going to enjoy.
I'm a fan of both of these beers. Thank you so much for turning me on to this.
All right.
Barik.
Well, if people want to reach you or find out more about you, where do they need to go and what do they need to do?
You can find me on Instagram as Ray Duncan Music, and you got to spell it RAYDUNCAN Music. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Bandcamp. I've got a little website. TikTok, I think I'm Radio Ray. That's RAYDIORAY. Fairly certain. I'm on that one less. But yeah, you find me on all the things, whatever your preferred platform. And yeah, happy to talk.
All right. And this is Chris Schrum signing out with another episode of Two Beers with a Band. Cheers.